Thank you. Perfect. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. So this is our April 2023 community call. So our topic today is really talking about the member reporting. So those are the reports that you will see in your member portal. And you already know us already. So this is your ORCID US staff. My name is Paolo Guhilde. I'm the ORCID US Community Specialist, and my colleague Sheila Raymond, who's our program leader for Persistent Identifier Communities, is also on the call. So feel free to ask questions if you have any, and let us know if you're having any issues and all of those things. And we also have a special guest, and I will let Emily introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Hart. I am at Syracuse University and I work in the libraries. I am the Science Librarian and Research Impact Lead. Myself and my team are involved with things like managing our research information management system on campus. And we do a lot with things like profiles and just trying to make our systems connect and work on our kind of integrations. And anyway, we are new-ish within the last year or so, ORCID community member. So anyway, I'm excited to be here today and thank you for inviting me to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily, and we're excited to have you here with us as well and and showing us what reports you guys have. All right, so it's always a good thing to kind of start off what's going on in our ORCID US community. We have a tremendous growth in the last year, of course, with a lot of going on, especially in regards to NSPM 33 and OSTP memo. So all of those things have helped basically increase our membership. So currently, we now have 194 members across the US. So we have a lot of network in the US already, which is wonderful. And with that 194 members, there are currently about 300 integrations across all of our members. And this is just kind of showing you an overall kind of report of the ORCID US community. And actually, this particular report is also it's actually available to Sheila and me as consortium leads. And that's one of the reports that on our side we see in the member portal. So there are currently over 360,000 connected IDs in all of these integrations, which is a wonderful thing. And with that, there's been over 66,000 records that's been updated. So basically, each unique records ORCID IDs have been updated. So that's more than 66,000. And with all of those, these are the type of what you see at the bottom of that kind of table are the types of updates that's been done on the records. So the number of affiliations, for example. So the affiliations that we're talking about are employment, education, service, distinctions, memberships, qualifications. All of those things are added to that. There's also works, so your publications, conference papers, all of those things. Funding entries as well, person identifiers, and websites. So those are the different types of data that's been pushed into the ORCID record. And you'll see kind of an overall graph in the last few years, like, looking at the different, you see the unique IDs connected per year. So basically, how many ORCID IDs have connected to the unique ORCID IDs connected to an integration over time. So really today, like I said, we're talking about the member reports that you will find in the member portal. So really, how can you access these reports? All right, so the member reports are available in your member portal. The member portal itself needs to be activated. So if your organization have not activated it, if you're a member organization of the ORCID US community, you will need to activate that member portal. And that particular activation email went to the organizational owner of ORCID at your organization. And that's usually the main or voting contact for ORCID. So that the main voting contact will have to activate the member portal and able to access the member reports. So the initial owner, like I said, is the main voting contact for ORCID at your organization. And the contact, the person that activates it, which is the organizational owner, can add users to the member portal. So it doesn't need to be just one person. So that can be added with multiple people in there. And then the ownership of the portal itself can also be changed at any time. So, from time to time, we would have an organizational owner that's probably the dean or the vice president of research, for example, and they may not have time to kind of maintain the member portal, so they can actually change that ownership to somebody else if they like. There are three reports available in the to members. So the first one is the member report, which is sort of like the general combined report for your organization. There's also an integration report, which is specific to an integration. So if you have an integration with, say, faculty 180, so you'll have a specific report for that in the integration report. There's also the affiliation report, and this one is really looking at who are the people affiliated to your organization. So this is based on organizational IDs, so like ROR, Research Organization Registry, or GRID or Ringgold, for example. So those are the organizational IDs, and we can talk more about that later. The affiliation report itself is only available to consortium members. So any members of the ORCID US community have access to an affiliation report. So that's really only available to consortium members. All right, so let me share a link to the member portal. So if you want, you can always um, basically join us, kind of follow along and take a look at the member portal. Sheila shared it. Wonderful, thank you. And we will also share the member reporting guide as well. I will use that, and we will use that heavily on today's um, discussion and our community call. And I got that link for you. Sheila beat me to it. Thank you. So we will use that heavily as well. So if you do have access to your report currently, go ahead and log in if you like and follow along. That's up to you. Uh, so we're doing a lot of screenshots today because, as you know, when you're actually looking at those reports, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to have all the data populated. So there's just a lot of data that's available there. So you can access your report basically by going through the member portal login page. You can kind of see right at on the top of the page that letting you know that this is different from the ORCID registry. So typically, sometimes when you have access to the member portal, is that your password may be different from what your regular ORCID ID password is. So that's depending on how you set it up. The email address may be different. So all of those things you have to kind of just think about, making sure that you get all the right credentials to log in into the system. But like it says here, it is, it's different from the ORCID registry. And this is more of just sort of like the back end of things, looking at what's going on with your ORCID, information about your organizations, and maybe access to an affiliation manager if you're using that. So to get to the different reports, you go to the top right area under tools. You can, if you click on that, you will see different kind of a drop down menu with the different reports that's available. Now, what you're seeing on the screen right now is what Sheila and I sees, which is basically on our side. So this is just an access to us for member report, for example, if we have one, an integration report if we have one. But on our side, what we normally would look at is a consortium report. Now, you will not see the consortium report on your end as a member. You will see the member report, the integration report, and the affiliation report. And I believe Emily will show you that later on. She's got a specific slide for that. All right. So I'm going to walk through a little bit on what the member report looks like. Basically, I'm using Syracuse University's member report to kind of walk us through the different areas of this particular data. All right. So one of the first things you will notice when you're actually looking at the report is that there are different sections in them. So one of those sections would be like an impact, for example. So here you will see a total unique IDs. And that really refers to um, the different ORCID IDs that's affiliated, not affiliated, but connected to the different integrations in your institutions. So for example, here with Syracuse, they have two integrations, and currently there are about 86 ORCID IDs that's connected to them. Now, the number is a little low since um, Syracuse University, I mean, I think the number is low, but Syracuse University, I mean, sorry, I think the number is good, but Syracuse University probably thinks that this number is low. But they just started this integrations, so it's a fairly new integration, and they're still um, working on it and kind of doing a lot of outreach to really ramp up the numbers. So, they're working on getting a lot of this out, a word out for their integrations, which is wonderful. So you will see that there are 86 people connected to these integrations, and you will also see that there are two integrations available. So they currently have two integrations that they're now working on. You will see that there has some experts at Syracuse, and there's also a faculty portfolio system. It will tell you on each of those what's going on. So you have 80 connected users for the first integration, and they have updated 63 of the record, 63 ORCID ID. So they push something into 63 people, and 80 people have granted them permission to either update um, their ORCID records. So that's the data that's available there. And you will also see an appear year kind of thing where last year a lot of people connected their ORCID IDs, and currently right now 2023, the year have just really started. So that's going to be growing as as we go along throughout this year. And then you will also see records updated. So they push data to 63 records, no, 63 ORCID IDs, for example, here. So this is really looking at how many ORCID IDs have been updated. So just pushing data to those to those ORCID IDs. And here looking at the affiliations that's been added. So the type of data that's been pushed into the ORCID record. So you will see that the affiliations, 63 people have added affiliations. Total affiliations added is really, if you push, say, two positions, for example, in their ORCID record. So maybe they have a previous position and then a current position or a current title, so you push that there. Or maybe you have pushed say an education information, so that's looking at the affiliation itself. But currently right now they've pushed employment record, so 100% of those are employment. And there are other items that's been added as well. This is just kind of telling you the other items that's been added. And these are the other items that's been added. So you have works that's been added to the ORCID record, or to the ORCID IDs, or to the ORCID users. And it's telling you a little bit of like what type of works has been added. So there's a breakdown of that. So that could be a patent, book review, books, conference paper, all of those things. And then you have other kind of sections here that does not have any updates. So that could be like pushing peer review information into somebody's ORCID record. There's also records updated with websites and social links or social media links, that sort of thing. So that's available there as well. Um, but you'll see that if there are no data that's being pushed, you will not, there are no records or data available, of course. And this section is just really talking about the different email domains that's available in the ORCID records. So you will see that, obviously Syracuse.edu is on top with, so the different emails that's available there. And then of course the subdomains as well. So all of these emails you can email domains you can actually add. So looking at, say for example, if you want to add a particular domain to the report, you can just let us know, or you can also email support@orcid.org to let everyone know that, to kind of say, oh, we want to add this email domains or subdomains to our report. And this is just sort of like what's being used, how people are, not how people, but more of like the use of the API, the authentications of logging into the integrations. So that's just kind of an aggregate activity. This is not necessarily like this is how many people, but more of just like a representation of that. So you can kind of see that there's some spike here and there. And what I normally would do previously in my other previous jobs before, when I was looking at, say, database statistics, for example, is that why is there a particular spike in this area or in this particular month? Maybe we pushed an email out about a particular resource, that sort of thing. So it's always a good way to kind of take a look at what's going on in those kind of sections of spikes, or maybe, at certain points say, oh, we need to push another kind of email about ORCID or about a particular resource, that sort of thing. So that might help with access uh, to to basically to the resource. And towards the bottom of the member report, you will also see the geography sections. So basically looking at the different areas and where, say, where people are, for example. So the affiliation countries is really showing you, on those affiliation metadata where they are at. It's also looking at the current affiliations. So that's really like a listing of all IDs with country code, and that's really broken down by like the different organizational IDs. So like your ROAR, Ringgold, and Grid again. So these are only when you see current in this report, it's really looking at ORCID records or ORCID kind of entry that does not have an end date. So say for example, if you're looking at current affiliations, it's really pulling those data where the person, for example, like started working, say, at 2016 at Syracuse University, and then left the end date basically blank or open. So the assumption is that that particular person still works at Syracuse University. And there's also a country code really here, just showing you kind of showing you that the country code is constrained within the biographical metadata of the connected IDs. So just looking at where those people are. And then there's also the user location over the last year. Currently, this is blank right now, but you will see it sort of like an example here. I grabbed this from actually the member reporting guide that we linked to. This is kind of showing you that where your user was based when they granted permission to your organization. So when they granted the permission for the authorization, basically that that you can access the ORCID record, or that you can make changes to the ORCID record via the OAuth process. So that's kind of telling you a breakdown of that. All right, so now I will hand it over to Emily to just talk more about the other reports that's available there.
Okay, thank you. You can go to the next slide. Thanks. Um, so what I want to do is talk a little bit about, just to kind of give some context to what Paolo's been talking about. We at Syracuse University, like I said, are a newer member of ORCID community. I think we've had it for about 1.5 years, but have really just started kind of exploring our reports more and to really start thinking about our integrations. And I was very fortunate. I was at a conference last week and had the opportunity to sit down with Paolo and really dive into what some of the reports and what the data behind them mean, because I think it's not obvious necessarily upfront in some cases. So anyway, at Syracuse University, we have 2 integrations currently, and by integrations, it means that we are connecting 2 of our major systems to ORCID using an API. And one of those systems is our research information management system, Experts at Syracuse. That's our name for it, and it runs on the software Pure. And with that system, as you'll see in a few minutes, you're going to have the data that's included in our integration report is primarily from that Experts at Syracuse system because it's a 2-way connection. So data will flow from Experts at Syracuse, our RIM system, to ORCID, and then from ORCID to our Experts at Syracuse system. And then we also have a faculty activity reporting system, which is a Watermark product, and faculty success, but we have named it faculty portfolio system on our campus. And that's a very new system that we're rolling out, within starting last year, but it's really just taking off now. And the connection for that is one way. So data from ORCID comes into our faculty portfolio system. So you're not going to see information on the types of records populated, for example. Anyway, so on this screen, it looks a little bit different than what Paolo was seeing because this is from a member standpoint and not the larger ORCID organizational standpoint. So our options are to look at our member report, which Paolo had covered, and it really kind of gives a hybrid of what you'll see in the affiliation and the integration report. And then we have the integration and the affiliation report, which I'm going to talk about. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an example of our affiliations. And what does an affiliation mean? That was something that I had to really grapple with a little bit. And in this case, it's looking at all of our affiliations. And there's actually different ways to look at affiliations. So an affiliation could be that when you're creating an ORCID profile, your organization was included. It could be in their education section, for example. It could be in their employment section, a qualification. I realized we looked that up, and that is also related to education. Invited positions might be something like a fellowship. Distinction might be something like an honorary award. But anyway, so somewhere in someone's ORCID profile, so they have indicated that they are affiliated with Syracuse University in one of these ways. And that simply means that when you're creating an ORCID profile, you are selecting Syracuse University in one of the drop-down menus. For example, if I put my education in and you start typing Syracuse University, and then you choose Syracuse University from the list that's kind of auto pulled up, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's one of the ways that you can create and link an affiliation or create an affiliation. You can also do it by integrating your systems as well to create that affiliation data. So anyway, it's an interesting slide to look at, though, to see how the people's ORCID IDs have been affiliated with Syracuse University. Next slide, please. And also, please stop me if I'm getting it wrong, or misstating it a little bit, Sheila and Paolo, please. This is a report that I think is really helpful. This is our affiliation report, but specifically this is focused on people that are employed by Syracuse University. So we're not looking at their education field on their ORCID profile. We're looking at their employment section, for example, and the organization that they have selected is Syracuse University in this case. The other thing that is important to remember with this report here is that, and I have blacked out the names for to anonymize them, but the other thing that's really important to remember here is that in order for the people to show up in this list, they have to be currently employed. So their date in their employment section for Syracuse University would say to present, for example. One of the other things that I think is important to point out, because it wasn't super obvious to me, is that if you want to export this report, you actually have to go to the table. There's another section up top in the affiliation report that just gives you the number. If you try and export that, it won't actually give you the details of the report. So you need to come down to the table that gives you the actual names and says publicly currently employed ORCID records. Again, so these are the people that are employed at Syracuse University currently. And you click the 3 dots there, and then it'll give you an option to export, and you can export to PDF or Excel or CSV. Next slide, please. Okay, so those are, again, I kind of highlighted the 2 pieces that I felt were most valuable to us in terms of the affiliation report. And then Paolo had touched on a couple of the other things that show up in the member report that are duplicated in the affiliation report. So I'm going to move on to our integration report now. And again, the integration means that the data that's showing up in these reports, or in this report or dashboard, is because of our connections to our other systems. So in this example, I'm showing that in order to have data populate in your dashboard or in your integration reports, you have to first select the integration that you want to look at. So in this case, for these examples, I've selected Experts at Syracuse, again, which is our research information management system. Next slide, please. Okay. And again, I don't think it's a big number that we have, but we haven't pushed it yet. So we really, one of the projects we're working on now is to try and connect our faculty activity reporting system, which is, again, our we're calling FPS, to our RIM system, which is Experts at Syracuse. So we've really, in the last year or so, been trying to work on creating that connection and working on less duplication of data. And anyway, ORCID is hopefully going to be the piece that connects our 2 systems together so that data flows between them. So anyway, our focus hasn't been outreach yet, but that's something that we have planned in the very near future. Currently, we have 80 Experts at Syracuse profiles that they have literally gone in and said, we would like to connect our profile to ORCID. And then again, like I said, that means there's a 2-way data flow between those systems. So data can flow from Experts at Syracuse, our RIM system, to ORCID and vice versa. And it shows that the number of people that have benefited from this integration are 63 people. Let's see, I actually forget the difference between I guess it's records updated. So people's profiles or ORCID records that have actually been updated are 59. And then the number of works that have been updated or pushed from our RIM system to ORCID is 1,600 something. Next slide. And this is just a quick snapshot of the types of things that have been pushed from our RIM system to ORCID. The big share of them is journal articles, but we also have a fair amount of other materials like book chapters. And there were, Paolo and I actually had looked at what does other mean? And if you go into ORCID and try and add an individual item to your ORCID record, you'll see that there is a list of what other means. And that's something I'd love to, see improved in the future, because when you're looking at reports, other is not helpful. So next slide, please. And then this is just a quick snapshot again, and this is specifically again of those profiles or ORCID records that have connected to our system, Experts at Syracuse. This is just a little tiny snapshot of some of the other organizations that have been identified from their ORCID profiles. And again, through things like their ROAR or their Ringgold. There's one for FundRef, which I think I didn't know about before as well. So it's kind of an interesting snapshot to see what organizations people might be serving on. For example, I saw Association of College and Research Libraries come up, and I know that's on my profile, for example, and I have a current membership with Association of College and Research Libraries. So it's things like service, memberships, education, employment. So anyway, it's an interesting list and kind of snapshot of some of the collaborations that might be happening. Next slide. Oh, I think that's it. Anyway, I'm here and happy to answer questions after the presentation.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for showing us your report, and that's really, it's looking good. So thank you. So yeah, like Emily said, I just want to kind of mention again that you can export the different sections of your report. So if you want to pull up the people's information, for example, the ORCID IDs, perhaps what type of affiliation that's available in their ORCID record, you can do that by pulling up by exporting the data. Through that particular box or frame or section of the report. Just clicking on the three dots, that should do it. You should have those options. For the certain graphs, for example, the charts, you can also export that into a JPEG or a PNG file, that sort of thing. So that's also available there as well. And those things are really useful when you kind of try to compile information about what's going on with your ORCID and ORCID membership, and how, if you want to do some presentations for your organization or showing the statistics to the different stakeholders on campus. I think that's really a valuable tool to have. All right, so we're going to continue on. They're just kind of talking a little bit what additional reports are available. So now we went through the member portal, the member reporting that's available there with member report, integration report, and affiliation report. And we do have some additional reports that we can also do for you, or that you can also check. So for example, we always encourage you to check if you have an integration, is to check your vendor systems, see what reports and statistics are available there. They might have data that's more kind of, you know, that have more details than what you would see in the member reporting in statistics, for example. So definitely take a look at those. And the other thing that we also do in the ORCID US community is that we can pull current employees and current students information as well. So that would be their ORCID IDs using an R search through RStudio. So really searching the ORCID registry with an API call. But looking at only the publicly available information. So we can do that for you as well. So if you want us to do that, just email Sheila and me at orcidus@lyrasis.org, and we will work with you in getting those reports. There's also actually one of the links that I'm sharing here is a blog post about how you can do this on your own if you like. So that's available there as well. Now, we went through the different reports. There are ways that you can make it even better. So making everything counts. So these are just some of the tips that might be helpful for your organization and for you as well. So of course, the first thing is that integrating systems with ORCID. So you will see that there's a report about the integration report, and on the member dashboard, for example, the member report is that a lot of those data are from the integrations. So really, if you don't have an integration, you might see a bunch of zeros in your report. So one of the best things that you can do is thinking about integrating your systems with ORCID, and that way you can actually leverage ORCID more and do more with ORCID in terms of kind of working with your faculty, making sure that your faculty and your organization is credited with their work and all of those things. So I always encourage, and we always encourage that you integrate with ORCID. The other thing also is writing data to ORCID. So once you have that integration, start thinking about writing data to ORCID. And you can do that with in different ways. So you could use a vendor system, for example, like what Syracuse is doing, using Pure and other systems. You can also do a custom integration. So let's say you have a system that that does not have a built-in ORCID functionality. You can start thinking about a custom integration, and we do have information and resources on how you can do that. So an example of that would be, say, University of Florida last year and did a custom integration pushing funding information into their researchers' ORCID records. So that those are just ways that you can do kind of writing data to ORCID. The other way that you can also write data to ORCID is using the affiliation manager, and that's a built-in tool within the member portal. And this is actually probably the easiest way to write data to ORCID. This is a built-in tool, like I said, and what you have to do is just basically having um, affiliation information on the people that you want to push data to. So it could be a faculty list, for example, and you want to push their employment information into ORCID. So we can talk more about that. You can email us on how affiliation manager work, but really affiliation manager is probably the easiest way to write data to ORCID. So it does not require development since it's already available for you. So to enable to actually use the affiliation manager though is that you have to use one of your API keys. So that kind of activates or enable it within the member portal. But if you want to know more about it, just let us know and we can talk more about how you can use affiliation manager in your organization. And one of the things also Emily talk a little bit about this. So if you are not writing or pushing data to ORCID, one way that you can do the making sure that your um, your staff members, your faculty, your researchers are counted in the affiliation report, for example, is you encourage them to use the drop down menu option to kind of pick the organization that's available there. So, for example, here actually on this screenshot is like I typed in lyricist. So if I pick the first option of lyricist, for example, that's making sure that there's an organizational ID that's attached to that particular entry. So with the organizational ID, that's going to be available in your affiliation report. One thing of note, though, is take a look at your affiliation report. There's a section there about organizational IDs that's being pulled. If you are not seeing the organizational IDs that you think you should be seeing, so for example, you're only seeing ROAR, but you want to add Ringgold and Grid to it or other organizational IDs, you can let us know and ORCID can add those organizational IDs into your report. So making sure that the other org IDs are available there and that the data and the people that's connected to those org IDs are counted in your affiliation report. So just let us know if that happens. And actually, I guess that's kind of really the last point there is that you're adding organizational identifiers into your affiliation report. All right, and I think the last thing is that some resources are available and that you can take a look at, and that we highly encourage you to take a look at. There's a link to the member reporting guide, the portal account management. So that's when if you want to change ownership of the member portal or adding users to the member portal. There's also the affiliation manager guide, blog posts about writing data to ORCID, and that's going to be a valuable one to take a look at. And also, from time to time, if you want to know more about how can researchers connect to your ORCID ID, to your organization. So there's a blog post in that as well. So all of these resources are going to be helpful for you. And if you do have specific questions, or if you want to know more about these things, please don't hesitate to email Sheila and me, and we can talk more about it. Discuss what you're thinking, and find solutions on how you can accomplish your goals with ORCID. So with that, we want to thank you for listening, and we will open it up to our Q&A. Okay,
Awesome. Thanks, Paolo and Emily. We
thanks.
have gotten a lot of questions in the chat. I think I've been able to answer most of them. And then I'm also trying to make sure all the questions are getting into the notes document. So if you have asked a question and you feel like you don't have an answer, or maybe I accidentally overlooked your question in the chat, if you make sure it's in the notes document, I will be adding answers in there too. But for the time being, we have about 15 minutes left. I am going to start with some of the questions that came in a little bit later that I hadn't had a chance to answer in the chat, and then we can kind of work backwards. And of course, I think everyone should be able to unmute now. So if you want to unmute and ask questions as well, that is fine too. Okay, so I'm going to start with the last question that came in, which is from Mark. How do you add additional email domains? We have the main campus and health sciences as their own email domains, and some faculty have access to both. Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, on your member report, down at the bottom, that's where you'll see kind of this overarching view of how many ORCID IDs have a specific email domain. That's typically an email domain that's associated with your organization. If you have email domains that are missing, just send us an email, let us know what domains you want added, and we'll have ORCID add those to your report. It's that easy. Okay, let's see. Oh, there's another question that I missed. Looks like, let's see. It's about affiliated schools. So are affiliated schools with separate identifiers, for example, law school, med school, etc., able to be brought under one membership? Affiliated schools. Yes, so you can actually have multiple identifiers. So if the law school might have a different Ringgold ID, the med school might have a different Ringgold ID, etc. Those can all appear under your single affiliation report. So just let us know what identifiers you want on your affiliation report, and those can be all added in the same account. Okay, have there been any more? Okay. So now I'm kind of just working backwards through the list of questions in the notes document. So to confirm, the integration report shows just those ORCID users who have integrated via one of our API token integrations. Yes, that is correct. So the integration report is just if you have an integration, and which is you're using one of your API keys in one of your local systems, that integration report for that system will just show whoever has connected with that particular integration. That is correct. And then to confirm, the member report shows any ORCID user who has our institution's ID and their employment affiliation. Yes. So that would be kind of the bottom of the member report, where it has kind of that overarching like global map. And that is really more based on email domain. It's really the affiliation report. There's all these different reports. I know it can get confusing. The affiliation report is the one that relies on the presence of an institutional identifier in the ORCID record. Okay, another one just came in. Are we able to run data reports on a specific integration beyond what is shown on the dashboard? Yes, theoretically. It kind of depends on what your integration is, whether it's with a vendor system or it's a custom integration. If you're working with a custom integration, you can run whatever kind of reports you want. You just have to use the API to get whatever information you want to get. If you're using a vendor system, it might be a little bit more limited. So I would recommend talking to your vendor about what the possibilities are for that. Okay, so there was another question that was asked earlier that I did not answer in the chat because it was a little complicated, which is the member report shows number of affiliations and separately number of ORCID accounts with email addresses with our domain. Is there an easy way to encourage the latter to set their affiliation? So basically, that's a question of if somebody has an email address on their ORCID record that's affiliated with your organization, that's your organization's email domain, but they don't have your organization listed as an affiliation, like it's not listed in their employment section or their education section, they just have the email address. Is there an easy way to encourage those people to add the actual affiliation, so the actual employment or education statement on their ORCID record? I would say there's not really an easy way to do that if you want to get at those specific people who are appearing in the stats on your member report, because in ORCID, email addresses are set to private by default, and very few people actually go in and change their email address to be publicly visible. So because the email addresses are generally private, it's really, you're not really going to be able to get those email addresses. So you can't really like get those people's email addresses and then email them and say, hey, you should add your affiliation to ORCID. What you can do is with all of the people that you know are currently at your organization, you could send an email out to all of those people and just say, hey, if you haven't already added your affiliation with us to your ORCID record, please go and do that, or connect with our API integration, or that kind of outreach to your current employees or your current students you can do. But in terms of like the actual people that are showing up in your numbers as having your email domain, the likelihood that you're going to be able to get those people's email addresses is very small because of the privacy issue. Okay, let's see. I think that kind of covers all of the questions that were not already answered in the chat. But does anyone have additional questions at this time that you either want to put in the chat or unmute? I did want to point out earlier, there was a question about when you first log into your member portal, you see like a list of contacts. So there may be some confusion because you have your contacts and then you also have users, like people that can use the member portal and log in. So it is possible to edit your users. So you can add additional users, like if there are other people at your organization that need to log in and see these reports. If you're the organization owner, you can add them. But you cannot edit your contacts right now. So if you're logging in and you see a list of contacts that looks really out of date, just send us an email with what the contacts should be, and we will make sure that those get updated. So yeah, you cannot edit your contacts right now. ORCID is working on a process for making that happen. But right now you can only edit your users, not your contacts. And of course, if you're looking at your reports and you are confused or you're not seeing something, or basically if you have any questions about your reports or anything related to ORCID, just contact us. We can have a one-on-one call with you to go through all of the specifics of your report to make sure that you understand what's going on and have what you need. And that's why Paolo and I are here, is to help you with that kind of thing. So if you're feeling any kind of confusion, or maybe you just don't even know what to ask, let us know. And yeah, the email address is orcidus@lyrasis.org.
I can confirm I met with Paolo twice to talk about member reports, or all the different reports. And we had been recently trying to figure out what the reports meant and what they meant in terms of integration versus affiliation and current employment. And it's not necessarily straightforward, but talking with them was really helpful. And I have a lot more confidence now in telling someone else that, this is actually what the data means as opposed to what I think it means. So it was really helpful.
Great. One more question just came in. Is there a way for a person who is not the affiliation manager to find out who is the affiliation manager for an institution? Athena, I think you might mean just kind of like the account owner or the organization owner, in which case send us an email, because we have everyone's list of contacts. We know who the main contact at your organization is. If you have any technical contacts or additional contacts, we have all that information. And so we can let you know who that main contact is at your organization if you don't know. So like if you want to get access to your member portal and your reports, but you don't know who to go to at your organization, just let us know and we can help you out there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and unmute, because I think that I might not be the only one who can end up in this sort of situation where someone who was involved in the licensing or invoicing ends up as the person who's the contact, and someone who's got ideas about what to do at ORCID for an institution will have no idea, and they won't have your contact, and it'll just be confusing. So it really can be a barrier to starting dialogue in an institution. So if there were some way, even if you don't reveal who it is, for the contact your organization's, whatever the title is, and they get the email so that they know when someone at the institution is interested in a project. I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. It really varies from one organization to the other, who the contacts are that we have on file. And yeah, sometimes some adjusting and shifting needs to take place there when maybe there's someone else at the institution who would be better served as the main contact, for example. So, so yeah, for the time being, just email us and we can put you in contact with whoever the people are, and then, we can figure out what needs to happen from there. But we will record that feedback.
Yeah, and I also just kind of want to add to that the organizational owner for your member portal does not have to be the main voting contact for ORCID at your organization. So ultimately, that really the kind of depends on how you guys want to do it at your organization. So like I said, it doesn't need to be the main voting contact for ORCID to be able to be the owner of the account of the member portal. All right. Any other questions? All right, we are now almost at the top of the hour. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I also just want to say thank you, a big thank you to Emily for joining us and showing us um, Syracuse University's reports. And that's, it's been really helpful. So thank you, Emily. If you do have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at orcidus@lyrasis.org. Stay tuned. We will share the recording as well as the agenda and notes to you all. So we will email everyone who registered to this session. But again, thank you all. Hope to see you again soon.